Joining us now from Washington is Dr. Chad Pecknold. He's Associate Professor of Systematic Theology at the Catholic University of America. Catholic U, we played them in football way back when I was at Marist College. It's not, you wouldn't say it's a liberal university, would you, a Catholic U at this point?
No, I mean, as universities go, it's less liberal than your average liberal place. But, you know, a conservative in a university is a unicorn, so there's not many of us.
Okay, but you're not talking about a radical campus like George Washington or American University or these places that hate Israel and all that. We're not talking about that, right?
That's right. We have all the usual kind of dynamics of every American university, but we also have this sense that we are tied to the teachings of the Catholic Church. It's a church that that founded the university, so we I think have some sort of stability, unlike a lot of woke colleges. Okay,
so you're deeply invested then in Pope Leo and how he's treated and what he says. And do you believe that Pope Leo did anything wrong here?
Well, I mean, you know, I think always with the Pope and with presidents, it's always best to blame people around him than the person. I mean, I think there is a whole comm scheme around the Pope and there's a whole comm scheme around the president. And I think we have to, you know, maybe reassess how they're going to think about future discourse between Pope and the president. This is like 2,000 years of conflict between popes and kings should tell us that we should manage this carefully, and I think we're going to see a lot more of this. But yeah, I think the Pope did not know that he was walking into a media.
No, I agree. I don't think the Pope knew that this was going to stir it up, but he should have known.
Should have, and his people should have known.
Right, because Francis, his predecessor, got into a lot of controversy by basically being an open border guy.
Exactly. And we've had this problem in the church for a while. You know, for many, many years, Catholics in America were Democrats. And now we face a different reality in the Catholic Church in this country where something like 56 or 58% are Republicans and many support the president. And so we have a new dynamic, a lot of older Catholics, and certainly that would include bishops, you know, are still sort of thinking that they should be helpful to the Democratic Party's line as far as they can be. And that involved the church in all sorts of contracts with the government to help migrants at the borders. And I think we've gotten some fuzziness from the church on these issues of immigration. And so it's not surprising that we also still have fuzziness on just war theory. I think, you know, the church's teaching is very clear in print. You know, if you look up the catechism is extremely clear that about the, you know, the criteria for just war and who has the competent authority to make a judgment about its justice. It's not the Pope, it's the government authorities who have that.
But I noticed, you know, while Francis was very pro-immigrant, and an open border guy that didn't want any restraint. As soon as Leo came in, and I put this into the Leo's an American citizen category, Leo said that no, countries have a right to control their borders and they have a right to enforce their laws. He said that very, very quickly on, distancing himself from Francis. Now, President Trump didn't get that memo. Okay, for some reason, he didn't get that memo at all, because one of the reasons that he wailed on Leo and brought in soft on crime was the border.
Yeah,
I don't even know if President Trump knew that Leo came in and said, no, I'm different from Francis. I do believe in law enforcement in migratory affairs. I'm guessing here. I did not talk to President Trump about it, but he did link it in. And therefore, you know, I don't like popes. That was Trump's line, who are soft on crime and da-da-da.
Which, of course, the Pope is not soft on crime, and the Church's teaching isn't soft on crime. But we have this tradition, and especially on the back of Francis and what the media did. I think you're exactly right, Bill. The media has ginned up this controversy because they've been in the habit now for the last decade or more of using the Pope for their own purposes.
They can't get enough of it, and still to this day, they're still doing it, trying to undermine President Trump by using the Pope's moral authority. But the Pope made a mistake, in my opinion, as I just said in the memo. If you're going to make a very powerful statement about just war, and there's a simple reason why the war is taking place, and the simple reason is that U.S. intelligence believes the mullahs are weeks away from being able to weaponize uranium. And if you're going to get involved with that, then you have to answer essential questions. Is the Vatican okay with that? But the Pope doesn't want to do that. He wants to stay in the theological realm. Or am I wrong?
Well, I don't even know if they're staying in the theological realm. I think this was an issue on immigration when the vice president met with the bishops last year. You know, there's a kind of vague virtue signaling that happens both with war, which sort of vaguely signals in favor of pacifism, and a vagueness about the rights of the migrant against the dignity of the nation and securing the common good of the nation. We don't get specificity from the bishops. We don't get specificity from the Pope. And I am very happy for the Pope and for bishops to intervene in our national conversation. I don't think that Christianity is a private thing. I don't think it has no place in our public discourse. I think it's absolutely central. But I think bishops and popes absolutely need to recover their kind of technical interest in these problems,
or their moral authority.
But and their authority. If you don't want a nuclear bomb, I mean, I'm against nuclear proliferation. So's the Pope. So's church teaching. So's Donald Trump. So we're all actually on the same page that we don't want nukes, right? But how do you get rid of them? When you've got a nation that has a Death to America Day, they celebrate Death to America for, 37 years they've chanted Death to America, and they want to develop a nuke. And we can't simply wave our hands at peace and think that we should do nothing. And so I think when the Pope or when bishops want to intervene, and they should intervene when they feel a need, they need to bring specifics. And that's
right, it's called responsibility to back up your assertion. But I'm going to disagree with you, Doctor, a little bit. 60 Minutes cherry-picked 3 liberal bishops to back up the Leo point of view. They didn't seek out. They didn't seek out any conservative bishops, and there are conservative bishops. So 60 Minutes took the 3 that were going to pound Trump, put them on the air, and that's not unusual for them. That's what they do. That's what they do. But the Vatican is a bureaucracy, as you well know. If you go against Pope Leo in any way at all publicly, and you're a bishop, you're toast. You're done. They're not going to brook that. So there is a fear about conservative clerics in the Catholic Church speaking out about this. So I went to Mass on Sunday, as I usually do. There wasn't a word about this. They don't want anything to do with this thing, okay? I mean, we got Isaac, we got Jeremiah, we got a whole bunch of, we didn't get any Iran, okay, in the sermon, because they go, whoa, we don't want to get on the wrong side of this. Vatican is a huge operation, and it is a secular operation the way it runs. Last word.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true in a sense. The Catholic Church is taught the mafia how to behave. With a very sort of strict line of command. When the Pope says something, then you follow it.
You follow it, and if you don't,
I think the Catholic laity are the ones who have to speak up about these things. You speak up about these things. I speak up about these things. J.D. Vance speaks up about these things, and the Catholic laity, have rights to speak too. And I think it's often been the case that Catholic rulers have often led the way on these questions. And I think we do need greater specificity. I don't think these disputes between a pope and a president are going away. I think we're going to see more of this. Whoever the next president is will continue to see more of that. So I think we actually
that'll be interesting. But I think there's going to be a little détente here between Leo and Trump. I think this is going to lessen now.
I believe that too. I think we found resolution.
All right, Doctor. Thanks very much for helping us out. Really appreciate it.